Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 6 of One Bottle Each. I'm here today with my friend Michelle Williams. Michelle is the author and founder of Rock and Red blog. She's a prolific freelance writer who writes for sites such as Forbes, Wine Enthusiast, Wine Searcher, among others. She is also has advanced certification for the Wine and Spirits Education Trust. Michelle, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Gabe. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Surviving 2020. I think, that's a feat in and of itself.
It sure is. Thinking back to when you first got into wine as a passion, was there a go-to for you? Was there a variety or a region that really first spoke to you and you just kind of went back to again and again?
I think my story, my entry into wine isn't probably that different than a lot of people's. I was in my early 20s after college, and I had a group of girlfriends that invited me to go to a wine and food pairing dinner at a bar downtown, and I didn't even know what that was. And so I went with them, and the wine was Kendall Jackson. So it was a whole flight of KJ wines and different food pairings. And by the end of the night, I thought, this is the greatest thing that I have done in a long time. And so initially, for many years before I got into the wine industry, I was very much a Napa girl. Drank a lot of Napa wines, been to Napa many times prior to, and then once getting into the business, then, the whole world of wine just opened up for me.
That is such an amazing thing, what you described there, to have as sort of your first experience with wine, like the first one that, really hit you with some impact to sit there and do wine and food pairing. So many people don't get that for years. So that's pretty incredible.
Yes, I used to, I'm not going to say I haven't had a boxed wine here or there, prior to that experience, but that was it. And I didn't really know how to buy wine. And so I would go to the wine store and I would tend to come home with bottles that were probably more expensive than I should have been buying. And my husband challenged me one time, go to the wine store and talk to the people that work there and ask them to help you find the same quality wines for less money.
Wow.
So did that too. And to this day, even on Facebook, I'm a big proponent of talk to the people at your locally owned wine retailers and they will help you.
I completely agree. Having a good person in a local store that you trust and who starts to understand your taste can really be a huge help and a revelation into, getting the bottles that you're really going to enjoy.
Absolutely.
Like most of us in the wine world, you've done quite a bit of traveling. Is there a particular region you've been to that offered more surprises than you were expecting? And when you got there, it really dramatically opened your eyes?
That is a great question. I think definitely one at the top of the list would be Moldova, because it's the first time I've ever really experienced an Eastern European country. And in some ways I wasn't surprised because I had studied in Cuba for a while. So there was some similarities in structure and, just things that I had recognized, but that was definitely a very unique experience. And I think probably Australia, not because I hadn't had the wines, because I had, but there's much more diversity of style than what I had been, what I had experienced prior to going. And then actually, I would say, a trip I did with you, Argentina. I mean, the Uco Valley. Wow, that was an incredible experience. And again, knowing so much about Argentine Malbec and thinking so much in that direction, and yet, us having some great Pinots and Chardonnays and Sauvignon Blanc and Cab Franc and, all kinds of stuff. So there was a lot opening up of my perspective of the region and the wines there too.
Yeah,
Every
same
trip
here.
reveals a little bit of something that I didn't know going in.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm agree with you and have the same experience. But going back to Echo Valley for a second, you're totally right about all those different varieties that's shown. But what's really interesting is if you actually only focused on Malbec, there's so many other styles of Malbec than what is on the average shelf here in this country. And
Yep.
while I'd had some of those, to see the great selection that we were lucky enough to taste while we were there, I think was really fantastic.
I couldn't agree more.
Tell me a little bit more about Moldova, if you would. I don't really know much about the wines there. Are there certain varieties or wines that really knocked your socks off?
Not one producer. Pukari is one of their better known producers, and their wines are really quite lovely. I think the small producer movement, they have a small winery association. A lot of those wines don't make it over here yet, but I hope that they will. They are producing some really high quality wines, and they tend to do a lot of blends. They still have the majority of the grapes there are still international varieties, mostly French.
Okay.
And there's a big movement to grow the indigenous grapes, indigenous to Moldova, but the region in general. Also, I know they have a lot of Romanian grapes and Georgian grapes that just kind of all cultivate really well in that region. And so some of the ones that are great are the blending of the indigenous varieties with the international ones. And yeah, they have a really bright future. I know that they are export to the US is very low, but they work a lot. Our government works a lot and has been for decades to help them. And so hopefully over time, we will start to see more Moldovan wines in the United States.
That's great, and makes total sense that they would move towards indigenous varieties. I mean, quite frankly, it becomes a lot more interesting, I think, for large countries like the US who are seeing, the international varieties from so many countries that when a country like that offers something nobody else does, it's probably going to have an easier time finding a marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did a webinar for them a few weeks ago, and one of the things that I said was, the United States doesn't need another source for Cabernet. We've got Cabernet coming out of every country in the world and Napa Valley and other regions within the US. So, having grapes that maybe are a little challenging to pronounce, but have a unique flavor, and even blending that then with some Cabernet, that's a great way to bring people in and then slowly move them on to something that, like you just said, like that we can't get anywhere else in the world.
Totally agree. So tell me, Michelle, what is exciting you right now about wine? What is, these days, whether it's, the last year or so, or whether it's something that has popped for you during COVID?
I have a few things that have popped for me this year, and they don't seemingly go together, so it's going to seem really strange.
Okay.
One of them is what I like. A lot of them come out of research that I do for articles. So one of them is what I like to call funky bubbles, which is like Pet Nat and Piquette and Colfondo and those types of non-traditional method sparkling wines. I love the way that they kind of democratize the category of sparkling wine and allow producers of all sizes and all budgets to be able to make some types of sparkling wine. So I'm excited about that. I am excited about soil biome and the microbials in the soil. And I've just finished a big research assignment on that and what that means for high quality wine and how it's being threatened through climate change. And then honestly, as a Texan, the Texas wine industry, I'm super excited about how dynamic and innovative it is and how it just keeps growing and growing and getting better every single vintage. It's a fun thing to be on the ground for and experience that.
Yeah, I'll bet. I was there a couple of years ago and I was pretty impressed with the broad array of things that are being grown there. And it's interesting in that last couple of years, around the country, you're hearing more and more people talk about Texas wines.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
yeah.
Good.
Absolutely starting to hear about it more. So the first thing you mentioned there, though, explains to me then why you chose the wine for us to taste that you chose.
Yeah.
So Sylvanas, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes. Yes. Channing daughters.
They are located.
I love this too. I want to pour it in like with all the, look at that foam.
It's beautiful.
Isn't that fun?
It is. And man, the nose on this is really, really expressive.
And you're drinking it from a proper wine glass.
Yeah. I generally drink my bubbles from a regular wine glass more than a flute, personally.
I don't use flutes. I don't actually own any flutes, and I do have some very nice tulip glasses,
Yes.
that I use for like French Accorda and stuff. But I don't know. This just feels to me like, it's so casual. So I like the nice bulb of the. I think this is like one of those Riedel, like
Oh yeah, absolutely.
stemless glasses. So
yeah, I have some of those too, and I use them all the time. I visited Channing Daughters the one time I tasted on Long Island about 3 years ago. They were.
I've never been. I want to go. How was it?
You need to go. It was one of, for me, the two wineries that most impressed me on Long Island of the whatever dozen I visited. And wow. I loved the stuff they were doing, skin contact, that they were doing, pet nats that they were doing, although I don't remember tasting this wine, that they were doing, making their own gin. Just a lot of
cool.
Yeah, a lot of really interesting things.
I didn't know that. Oh, I love gin. Yeah, the winemaker Christopher Tracy, he's a fascinating man. He's quite the polymath. He's got like a background in theater, and then and he's I don't remember all his credentials. He's a advanced SOM and a WSET. I think he's diploma WSET and a certified wine educator. And he was a member of their wine club, and he was really fascinated by the wines that they were making, and just started to get more involved and doing some experimental stuff. And now he's like a partner in the winery, and he's been their winemaker for many years. So I just think that that's a great story.
That's an incredible story. What made you aware of them?
Interestingly enough, it was Marissa Jeter with Twin. Yeah, she knew I was working on a special kind of long-term project with PetNat, and trying to find them all over the United States. And she recommended them to me and connected me with Christopher and his wife. And he sent me, like, they make, I think 8 to 10 a vintage. And I'm like, please don't send me all of them. So he sent me, I think I've got maybe 5. Okay. And this one I loved. And so I wanted to send it to you so that we could try it together. I also really like their philosophy of farming, and they're organic and sustainable. They pay all their employees a living wage. They completely recycle all the I guess waste from winemaking and reincorporate it back into the soil and the vineyards and stuff. So I'm totally supportive of all of that.
I'm a huge believer in all of that stuff as well. And having visited, I can also tell you that, and this won't surprise you if you've gotten to know them a little bit, they're also a really fun place to visit. So they do all this good, serious stuff. And then it's a fun little tasting room, and it's just it's a good place to be. Cool. Good.
Were you excited? I mean, were you excited and surprised that this was the wine that I sent you?
Yes, both of those things. Excited because I hadn't had anything from them in a little while, and really, again, was impressed with them. And then surprised because it just didn't occur to me that my friend in Texas was going to send me a wine from Long Island. so that was great, though. And that's, for me, part of this whole thing is, who knows what anybody will decide that we should taste. So,
this one is a blend. It's 50% Pinot Grigio, 10% Muscat. Oh, now you can smell that, can't you?
Absolutely.
And 10% Pinot Bianco.
Yeah. The Muscat
Mhm.
practically leaps from the glass.
Yes. Yeah, but I think the palate for me is, when their tasting notes say that it has some sweetness on it, and though I get that there is some, I think the finish is very almost like a beer kind of finish.
Yeah, there's almost like a creaminess
Hmm.
that I think comes from the effervescence.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's fruity, and I suppose it's got some sweetness to it, but it's easy to just keep drinking it
Yeah, it's only 10% alcohol.
because usually when something's sweet, after a little bit, I'm done.
Yeah. No,
But
this is so balanced.
this is lovely, and I can only imagine the variety of foods this will go with.
I know. The first when I first took a sip about 30 minutes before we jumped on together, I thought like cheese, totally first thing, cheese.
Yeah.
But then I think like, because it's got this kind of beer quality, like fish and chips or something that's fried with French
Mhm.
fries. That's what I want with this.
How about a fried chicken sandwich
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
with maybe a little spicy Chipotle
Oh,
mayo on it or something like
yeah.
that. I think that would go real
Or
well.
because of the little bit of sweetness, you could even almost do like a honey sriracha, so it's a little sweet and a little spicy. Kind of pull those two
Yeah,
together.
I think yeah, that would be perfect actually. Yeah,
Or this
really
would go
lovely.
really well with some Thai food or some sushi that's got a little bit of heat and a little bit of sweet to it as well.
Indeed. Or you can just sit here and drink the entire bottle and be perfectly content.
That's why you need at least two bottles, one to drink and then one to have with food.
Well, thank
Exactly.
you for picking this wine. It's really lovely, so refreshing.
Mhm.
Like we've just said, such a food wine. Channing Daughters, Sylvanas, Pet Nat, 26, $27.
29. I wrote it down. I think it's 28,
Okay, 28.
$28.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Really,
Mhm.
really reasonable for the quality there.
Yeah, fruity and floral on the nose, but on the palate, it's a little bit salty, a little bit minerally. It's really good. Mhm.
Great. So next, we're going to move on to the wine I
Mm,
selected, which is Smith Madrone Cabernet Sauvignon,
yes.
2016, brand new vintage. So, picked it for a few reasons. I'm not going to invite my friend who writes a rock and red blog onto my show for the first time and not get a red wine.
Oh, you're so
And
funny.
and and this is quite frankly one of my very favorite Cabernet Sauvignons in Napa Valley.
Hmm.
Certainly for the price point, $58 this vintage.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
what they accomplish and have been accomplishing. So I don't know what your experience has been with Smith Return over the years. If you've had them a lot, had them a little, not had them.
I've had them quite a bit. And I've met Stu and I've interviewed him a couple of times. And their Riesling is another one that I love that wine. And I think last year wrote an article about Napa Valley Riesling and interviewed him for that. And he's fantastic. Do you know him? Have you
I
met him?
do. I know both him and his brother Charlie
Okay.
pretty well. And I know Stu's son now, who also works at the winery as assistant winemaker. Got to know him as well. Yeah, they're fantastic.
I love that Stu is so outspoken and just puts it out there, whatever it is. I mean, those are the kind of winemakers you want to interview. And
He's a completely unfiltered fellow,
yes.
and he speaks a lot of truth, and they
Hmm.
make great wines. The Riesling is I've often referred to that as their secret weapon
Hmm.
because who's really talking about Napa Valley Riesling, right? And then
Yes.
Cabernet, Chardonnay, everybody talks
Hmm.
about those,
Yeah.
but then all of a sudden you get to the Riesling, and it's probably their most ageable wine of
I think it is. Yeah. It's so lean and focused. And although I actually, I tasted this one and I think I actually also wrote down lean and focused. That's just kind of their
Mm.
thing. Their wines are very intentional and very thoughtful.
They are that. They really speak of the property. Uh,
Hmm.
the thing I've always found that there's a consistency of quality there.
Hmm.
obviously they're going to vary because of vintage, but that's what you want. You want it to
Yes.
vary because of vintage, but year after year, there's good quality.
I agree. And ooh, this one's a stunner, don't you think? I mean, the
It
nose on
is.
it, geez, like put a little bit here, put a little bit here.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of red and black fruit, blackberry, little boysenberry. What's
Mhm.
interesting, I had the 15 a couple of months ago. I think this one is more immediately approachable than the 15 was out of the bottle.
Interesting. Okay. It's been a while since I've had the 15. But this one to me, I will say, I'm a bit surprised by it because it's a 2016 and like you said, it's so approachable. I mean, the tannins are silky and fine and it's I mean, like you can just open this and drink it right now.
Absolutely. It's got a sort of a sexiness
Mhm.
about it, just that pure fruit, and the tannins are there, but they're not obtrusive at all.
Mm-mm.
It's just immediately available.
Yeah. And the aromas, they just go on and on and on. And I mean, layers and layers and layers of dark, everything dark and wonderful, you know?
Yeah, and
Mm.
then there's that bit of mocha on the finish that just really sort of also goes on for quite a bit, like little chocolate
Yeah.
shaving.
Yeah. And it's got like this trail of smoke and almost like this graphite kind of this pencil shaving. I actually, because it's Monday night that we're filming this, and I actually have someplace that I have to go. So I'm not going to be drinking this wine tonight. So I corvined it so that we can open
Oh,
it in a couple of
great.
days and drink all of it because I didn't want to open it and have it sit. And I know my husband already had a sip out of my glass and he's like, yeah, when are we having that?
Well,
Like, well,
that's a
I'm
good
having
sign.
some now, and then the
Yeah.
two of us will probably have some maybe on Wednesday.
Oh, that's
Open it
great.
on
Yeah.
Wednesday.
I'm always excited to drink their wines, to talk to Stu and Charlie. Have you been up to the property?
I have not. No. Mm-mm.
I would, and I tell anybody this who goes to Napa Valley, if you're going to go to Napa Valley, you need to go to Smith Madrone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure next time you're there, if you know their wines now, you probably want. It's a beautiful property, and it reminds me of, in some ways, what I imagine Napa was if you visited in the 70s, in
Mm-hmm.
the sense, not that they're not doing everything that they need to do in a modern sense, but that there's no nonsense.
Yeah.
It's about the wine.
I
It's
love
about the
that.
it's about the farming, and about
Mm-hmm.
the people, and about their property.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is really what you want. And not that there's not other wineries in Napa like that, but they've been there since I think it's 71.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it right in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. And quite frankly, they're not only doing it right, but they're practically giving it away. I mean, you said $58 for this wine.
Yeah,
That's yeah, they could charge considerably more than that.
it's
And I know that they know that and they don't. So
it's true. Stu said to me once, maybe more than once, that they like to price their wines at, the term he used was the high end of drinkability.
oh, nice.
He knows that their wines are ageable. He knows they could charge more, but ultimately want people to drink their wines. They don't.
Okay.
They're not looking to bottle trophies.
Yeah.
So
That sounds like him. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So
Beautiful wine. Kudos to them. I mean, this is just I don't know what more you would want in a Cabernet like this.
yeah, it's elegant, it's
Mhm.
approachable, it's got a decent amount of power, but it's power
Mhm.
with grace.
Yes. Yes. Hmm. Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
I thought that the what is it, 89.7 Cabernet Sauvignon, 3.4 Merlot, 6.4 Cab Franc. So I can see them like, they're measuring this out so precisely.
yeah,
Like, what if he just put 90% and then 3% and 6%? It's like, why 89.7?
yeah. It's really interesting when it gets down to those details, but that's how specific those fellas are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no detail is overlooked in their wines.
Indeed. Well, Michelle, I want to thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here. I really appreciate this. I'm sorry that we're over Zoom and not, somewhere, some foreign land drinking wine, which is, far more enjoyable, but that'll have to wait till next year, perhaps.
Well, we've been to Alentejo together, and we've been
Yeah.
to Uco Valley together.
Valley together,
So yeah. We
We'll have to
visited a
pick,
couple foreign lands.
exactly. We'll have to pick another one and
Yes.
hopefully get there next year. But cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.